I grew up as a total gym rat, and as I reflect back on my life of physical fitness and movement, I realized that I internalized this concept that I was never doing enough. I always had to be doing more, and unfortunately, this hustle and grind culture runs deep in the fitness industry. But all this changed when I became a mom. And I didn't have the physical, mental, or emotional capacity to keep going full throttle on my physical fitness. I had other things that were more important to me. So I adopted an entirely new approach, the one that I'm sharing with you today. These 8 key elements I was only able to grasp once I was at my max full capacity. And they are concepts that I wish more people knew about, especially parents, especially women, especially people who don't want to dedicate their entire lives to exercise or the gym. And that person is now me too. I want to exercise so that I can live my life more full and that I can age healthily. So that first key concept I had to understand to put in 20% of the effort to yield 80% of the results is to stop counting reps. Instead of picking an arbitrary number like 8, 10, 12, or 16 reps, now I go to muscle failure. So this means that when I am lifting weights and doing a movement, I keep doing that movement to the point where I can't do it anymore. And maybe this means that I'm breathing really hard, I may make a funny face, and maybe I stop in between the rep because I cannot finish it. So I either go to that point or just before. Now, based on studies that I've seen, I do make sure that I'm not going beyond 30 reps. So that means I'm picking a weight that is at least somewhat challenging enough for me so that I'm not just doing this movement all day. And it actually feels really freeing to stop counting reps and instead listen to my body and let that be the deciding factor. Because muscles need to be challenged enough to see growth and to see strength growth. Which leads me to point number 2 is that strength and muscle growth go hand in hand. If you see an increase in strength, then that means you're going to see an increase in muscle mass. Now, I don't weigh or measure myself. I am going purely off of how my body feels, how it fits in clothes, how I observe the appearance of my body. But I used to be obsessed with this idea of functional fitness, always looking for the latest and greatest functional moves, which are usually just combination moves of different parts of your body working at the same time. And it's not necessarily true that you need these functional moves to see the results in your functional everyday lives. In other words, if we're working all the muscles in our body, we're seeing muscle and strength growth, then that's going to compound. As the muscles strengthen in my body, then we're going to see a strengthening in our everyday functional tasks. And we do this by point number 3, isolating the muscles. Now, I used to see isolating muscles and just lifting for one particular muscle as boring, but now I have a new sense of appreciation for it, self-awareness, and just connection to my body. By isolating the muscles, it means we don't do compound movements or combination movements. Now, if you love doing those things, then by all means keep doing it, but I noticed that this was keeping me burnt out, using a lot of energy, and now I send all of that energy directly to the muscle that I'm working, and as a result, I see more strength and more muscle growth. So a key element of isolating the muscles is to understand the role of biomechanics. So this I didn't fully understand at first. I would just look for exercises that directly target muscles, but as I went on, I sought out extra information because I was working in the fitness field on biomechanics, and there's a lot that goes into this. I won't go into it, but it has to do with force, with gravity, with anchoring. But the one key thing I want you to take away is the role of stability in helping you isolate the movements. So I used to say this all the time to my clients: not every exercise is a balanced exercise. So for example, if we wanted to isolate the glutes by doing single leg step ups onto a step, then I would have them, and I do this myself, hold on to a stabilizing object such as a wall, such as a machine or a chair. This is because when you're working on balancing, then that's requiring more energy of your body. And instead, when you are using a stabilizing object, then that means more sensory input is able to go into the working muscle. And what I mean by no compound movements is something like a squat or a deadlift. And like I said, if you love these and they work for you, by all means keep doing it. I realized that I didn't love them, and they kept me sore for days even if I was doing them every week. They just felt taxing on my body and on my joints, and I learned that I could better isolate and strengthen directly the muscles that those movements are working than the squats and deadlifts themselves. And why? Again, because they are working multiple muscles in your body. A common combination move is to do like a bicep curl and a lunge at the same time, or a plank and a row at the same time. I cannot reiterate enough the importance of doing those exercises separately. So I started to do bicep curls by themselves and take away the lunge, or doing a row separately than a plank. And it might seem counterintuitive, it might seem like you're doing less this way, but actually you're able to directly load the muscles more and get better bang for your buck. So you're spending less energy, but working harder those muscle groups. That was kind of 2 points in one there. So I'm gonna go to point number 5 of how I'm able to put in 20% of the effort and yield 80% of the results in my fitness routine, which is to separate cardio from my lifting. So I was the person that used to do high knees and jumping squats, other cardio movements in between my sets when I was lifting weights, because I thought that I was doing more, I thought I was burning more, I thought that I would just be a better athlete, and that is not the case. Now when I'm lifting, I focus on lifting, and instead I do cardio on other days, or just separate it entirely, and oftentimes it is naturally a part of my everyday life. So I'm not saying to stop cardio entirely. I aim for about 150 minutes of cardio per week, and I get this in the form of walking briskly, taking dance classes, riding my bike, swimming. And I find during the winter months when I'm not as active outside, I do tend to be a little more intentional about making sure I'm getting 150 minutes per week of cardio. But during the summer, it really just comes more naturally to me. Point number 3 is to work each muscle group 3 to 6 sets per week. So a lot of people think that the more you work a muscle, the better and the bigger it's gonna get. But this isn't the case. 3 to 6 sets is around the sweet spot for seeing muscle maintenance and muscle growth when we're isolating the muscles. Personally, I work each muscle 3 to 4 sets per week, and that is plenty for me. But for people looking for maximum muscle growth, then probably going to the upper side of that, so around 6 sets per week, but making sure that it's on non-consecutive days. So if you do 3 sets of a bicep exercise on Monday, then making sure there's at least 48 hours in between working that same muscle group again. So then maybe working it on Thursday or Friday. This is because we want the muscles to come in feeling fresh, energized, and ready to go to muscle failure once again. So to put this into perspective, if I'm working my biceps, triceps, and glutes on Monday, then I like to rotate these so that I can get rest in between sets. So I might work 1 hard set of my biceps, 1 hard set of my triceps, then 1 hard set of my right glute. Then I would do that all again 3 times. Point number 7 that I grasped while I was in the postpartum period was super important for my return to exercise and being in touch with my body once again. And I think it can help everybody, and that is to integrate the breath. By this, I mean inhale, expand through the rib cage and that diaphragm, and then exhale on your lift. And as you exhale, bringing the belly button into the spine. So always inhale on the lowering of the lift or that preparation, and then exhale on the contraction. This helps to integrate the core and pelvic floor, which everybody has, and I believe everybody could use more awareness of. It helps you become more in touch with your body, gain that self-awareness, and just slow down and be more mindful and aware of every movement. Incorporating the breath is what took me from isolating exercises that felt boring to isolating exercises that felt super intentional and meaningful and mindful. And the last point that helps me to see 80% of the results by putting in 20% of the effort has to do with a warm-up and cool down. So going along with that mindfulness of the breath, I always incorporate a cool down at the end of my workouts, and this is nothing crazy. I literally just lie on my back and breathe for a minute or two. That's all. Just helps to calm down the nervous system, as when we work out, we are stressing the body in a good way, of course. But if I calm down my nervous system, then my muscles are better able to recover and rest, which is where we really see the muscle and strength growth. On the other side of that is the warm-up. So I don't do this crazy warm-up. I used to do a warm-up where I would like run for 10 minutes and do all these stretches and do all these dynamic movements with a band. And of course, those are very valuable things to do if you enjoy them, if you see benefit from them. But I don't do that as a warm-up anymore because I don't want to be gassed when I go into my workout. I want my workout to be full on. If I'm not doing a crazy warm-up, then what am I doing? I am simply moving the joints around the muscles that I will be working. So if I am going to be on my hands, I will just simply warm up the wrists. If I am working the triceps, get some elbow flexion and extension. Shoulders, we got some circles, maybe some overhead movements. I've also heard experts say that if you don't have time for a warm-up at all, I will say my warm-up takes like 2-3 minutes, but if you don't have time at all, then you can have your first set be like a warm-up set. So maybe going a little lighter weight, really focusing on that range of motion, the breath, and everything that we have talked about. There we have it. Those are the 8 key concepts that I understood while I was recovering from birth, while I was transitioning into a different time of my life that took more attention than I was willing to dedicate to my exercise routine. And because of that, I'm able to put in 20% of the effort and yield 80% of the results. And hopefully you took away something from this video. I have a few videos where I do show some specific exercises that really show you what I mean by these concepts. And remember that you are enough, you are doing enough. It's time we dismantle this hustle culture of the fitness industry that is always telling us we're not enough, because we are, and that in and of itself is a form of resistance. So go out there and resist. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.